Welcome back to the Run for God Bible in a Year podcast. This is the only running-centric Bible reading program that you will find on the planet, and our goal is to help you get stronger physically, mentally, and most importantly, spiritually, as we read through the entire Bible in 365 days. Whether you're listening in your car, on your couch, or while you're out running or walking, we know the Word of God can transform us all. And it is my prayer that you are blessed by what we do here today. As a reminder, I am reading from the Holman Christian Bible, and we are going to be reading through day 81 today. As a matter of fact, this is our last day in the book of Deuteronomy. So we're going to read Deuteronomy chapters 32 through 34, and we're also going to read Psalm 91. But before we get to that, let me talk about our running or walking tip of the day. How about this? Sugar is not good most of the time, but sometimes it's the best when you're running and you need some immediate energy. So, sugar is a performance enhancer. You notice that the gels and things that you take, a lot of those have sugars in them. Now, it depends on, some sugars are better than others, obviously, but sugar is not necessarily always an enemy. I think that's important to understand. Now, our diets have far too much sugar in them. I'm not saying we all need to be eating more sugar. I'm just saying when you're completely depleted from energy, sometimes you need some sugar. All right, let's get into God's Word. Deuteronomy chapter 32. Pay attention, heavens, and I will speak. Listen, earth, to the words of my mouth. Let my teaching fall like rain, and my words settle like dew, like gentle rain on new grass and showers on tender plants. For I will proclaim the Lord's name, declare the greatness of our God, the rock. His work is perfect. All his ways are entirely just. A faithful God without prejudice. He is righteous and true. His people have acted corruptly toward him. This is their defect. They are not his children, but a devious and crooked generation. Is this how you repay the Lord, you foolish and senseless people? Isn't he your father and creator? Didn't he make you and sustain you? Remember the days of old. Consider the years long past. Ask your father, and he will tell you, your elders, and they will teach you. When the Most High gave the nations their inheritance and divided the human race, he set the boundaries of the peoples according to the number of the people of Israel. But the Lord's portion of his people, Jacob, his own inheritance. He found him in a desolate land, in a barren, howling wilderness. He surrounded him, cared for him, and guarded him as the pupil of his eye. He watches over his nest like an eagle and hovers over his young. He spreads his wings, catches him, and lifts him up on his pinions. The Lord alone led him, with no help from a foreign god. He made him ride on the heights of the land and eat the produce of the field. He nourished him with honey from the rock and oil from flint-like rock, cream from the herd and milk from the flock, with the fat of lambs, rams from Bashan, and goats, with the choicest grains of wheat. You drank wine from the finest grapes. Then Jeshurun became fat and rebelled. You became fat, bloated, and gorged. He abandoned the God who made him and scorned the rock of his salvation. They provoked his jealousy with foreign gods. They enraged him with detestable practices. They sacrificed to demons, not God, to gods they had not known, new gods that had just arrived, which your fathers did not fear. You ignored the rock who gave you birth. You forgot the God who brought you forth. When the Lord saw this, he despised them, provoked to anger by his sons and daughters. He said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what will become of them, for they are a perverse generation, unfaithful children. They have provoked my jealousy with their so-called gods. They have enraged me with their worthless idols. So I will provoke their jealousy with an inferior people. I will enrage them with a foolish nation. For fire has been kindled because of my anger, and burns to the depths of Sheol. It devours the land and its produce and scorches the foundations of the mountains. I will pile disasters on them. I will use up my arrows against them. They will be weak from hunger, ravaged by pestilence and bitter plague. I will unleash on them wild beasts with fangs, as well as venomous snakes that slither in the dust. Outside, the sword will take their children, and inside there will be terror. The young man and the virgin will be killed, the infant and the gray-haired man. I would have said, I will cut them to pieces and blot out the memory of them from mankind, if I had not feared insult from the enemy, or feared that these foes might misunderstand and say, our own hand has prevailed. It wasn't the Lord who did all this. Israel is a nation lacking sense, with no understanding at all. If only they were wise, they would figure it out. They would understand their fate. How could one man pursue 1,000, or two put 10,000 to flight? Unless their rock had sold them, unless the Lord had given them up. But their rock is not like our rock. Even our enemies concede, for their vine is from the vine of Sodom and from the fields of Gomorrah. Their grapes are poisonous, their clusters are bitter, their wine is serpent's venom, the deadly poison of cobras. It is not stored up with me, sealed. Is it not stored up with me, sealed up in my vaults? Vengeance belongs to me, I will repay. In time their foot will slip, for their day of disaster is near, and their doom is coming quickly. The Lord will indeed vindicate his people and have compassion on his servants when he sees that their strength is gone and no one is left, slave or free. He will say, where are their gods, the rock they found refuge in? Who ate the fat of their sacrifices and drank the wine of their drink offerings? Let them rise up and help you. Let it be a shelter for you. See now that I alone am he. There is no God but me. I bring death, and I give life. I wound, and I heal. No one can rescue anyone from my hand. I raised my hand to heaven and declared, as surely as I live forever, when I sharpen my flashing sword and my hand takes hold of judgment, I will take vengeance on my adversaries and repay those who hate me. I will make my arrows drunk with blood, while my sword devours flesh, the blood of the slain and of the captives, the heads of the enemy leaders. Rejoice, you nations, over his people, for he will avenge the blood of his servants. He will take vengeance on his adversaries. He will purify his land and his people. Moses came with Joshua son of Nun and recited all the words of this song in the presence of the people. After Moses finished reciting all these words to all Israel, he said to them, Take to heart all these words I am giving as a warning to you today, so that you may command your children to carefully follow all the words of this law. For they are not meaningless words to you, but they are your life, and by them you will live long in the land you are crossing the Jordan to possess. On that same day the Lord spoke to Moses, Go up Mount Nebo in the Abarim range, and in the land of Moab across from Jericho, and view the land of Canaan I am giving the Israelites as a possession. Then you will die on the mountain that you go up, and you will be gathered to your people, just as your brother Aaron died on Mount Hor and was gathered to his people. For both of you broke faith with me among the Israelites at the waters of Meribah Kadesh in the wilderness of Zin by failing to treat me as holy in their presence. Although you will view the land from a distance, which I am giving the Israelites, you will not go there. Deuteronomy 33. This is the blessing that Moses, the man of God, gave the Israelites before his death. He said, The Lord came from Sinai and appeared to them from Seir. He shone on them from Mount Paran, and he came with 10,000 holy ones, with lightning from his right hand for them. Indeed, he loves the people. All your holy ones are in your hand, and they assemble at your feet. Each receives your words. Moses gave us instruction, a possession for the assembly of Jacob. So he became a king in Jeshurun when the leaders of the people gathered with the tribes of Israel. Let Reuben live and not die, though his people become few. He said this about Judah. Lord, hear Judah's cry and bring him to his people. He fights for his cause with his own hands, but may you be a help against his foes. He said about Levi, Your Thummim and Urim belong to your faithful one. You tested him at Massah and contended with him at the waters of Meribah. He said about his father and mother, I do not regard them. He disregarded his brothers and didn't acknowledge his sons, for they kept your word and maintained your covenant. They will teach your ordinance to Jacob and your instruction to Israel. They will set incense before you and whole burnt offerings on your altar. Lord, bless his possessions and accept the work of his hands. Smash the loins of his adversaries and enemies so that they cannot rise again. He said about Benjamin, the Lord's beloved rests securely on him. He shields him all day long, and he rests on his shoulders. He said about Joseph, may his land be blessed by the Lord with the dew of heaven's bounty and the watery depths that lie beneath, within the bountiful harvest from the sun and the abundant yield of the seasons, with the best products of the ancient mountains and the bounty of the eternal hills, with the choice gifts of this land and everything in it, and with the favor of him who appeared in the burning bush. May these rest on the head of Joseph, on the crown of the prince of his brothers. His firstborn bull has splendor and horns like those of a wild ox. He gores all the peoples with them to the ends of the earth. Such are the 10,000s of Ephraim, and such are the thousands of Manasseh. He said about Zebulun, rejoice, Zebulun, in your journeys, and Issachar in your tents. They summon the peoples to a mountain. There they offer acceptable sacrifices, for they draw from the wealth of the seas and the hidden treasures of the sand. He said about Gad, the one who enlarges Gad's territory will be blessed. He lies down like a lion and tears off an arm or even a head. He chose the best part for himself, because a ruler's portion was assigned there for him. He came with the leaders of the people. He carried out the Lord's justice and his ordinances for Israel. He said about Dan, Dan is a young lion leaping out of Bashan. He said about Naphtali, Naphtali enjoying approval, full of the Lord's blessing, take possession to the west and the south. He said about Asher, may Asher be the most blessed of the sons. May he be the most favored among his brothers, and dip his foot in olive oil. May the bolts of your gate be iron and bronze, and your strength last as long as you live. There is none like the God of Jeshurun, who rides the heavens to your aid, and on the clouds in his majesty. The God of old is your dwelling place, and underneath are the everlasting arms. He drives out the enemy before you and commands, destroy. So Israel dwells securely. Jacob lives untroubled in a land of grain and a new wine. Even his skies drip with dew. How happy are you, Israel? Who is like you, a people saved by the Lord? He is the shield that protects you, the sword you boast in. Your enemies will cringe before you, and you will tread on their backs. Deuteronomy 34. Then Moses went up from the plains of Moab to Mount Nebo, to the top of Pisgah, which faces Jericho, and the Lord showed him all the land, Gilead as far as Dan, all of Naphtali, the land of Ephraim and Manasseh, all the land of Judah as far as the Mediterranean Sea, the Negev and the region from the valley of Jericho, the city of palms as far as Zoar. The Lord then said to him, this is the land I promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I will give it to your descendants. I have let you see it with your own eyes, but you will not cross into it. So Moses, the servant of the Lord, died there in the land of Moab, as the Lord had said. He buried him in the valley in the land of Moab, facing Beth Peor, and no one to this day knows where his grave is. Moses was 120 years old when he died. His eyes were not weak, and his vitality had not left him. The Israelites wept for Moses in the plains of Moab 30 days. Then the days of weeping and mourning for Moses came to an end. Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom, because Moses had laid his hands on him. So the Israelites obeyed him and did as the Lord had commanded Moses. No prophet has arisen again in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face. He was unparalleled for all the signs and wonders the Lord sent to him to do against the land of Egypt, to Pharaoh, to all his officials, to all the land, and for all the mighty acts of power and terrifying deeds that Moses performed in the sight of all Israel. Psalm 91. The one who lives under the protection of the Most High dwells in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to the Lord, my refuge and my fortress, my God, in whom I trust. He himself will deliver you from the hunter's net, from the destructive plague. He will cover you with his feathers. You will take refuge under his wings. His faithfulness will be a protective shield. You will not fear the terror of the night, the arrow that flies by day, the plague that stalks in darkness, or the pestilence that ravages at noon. Though 1,000 fall at your side and 10,000 at your right hand, the pestilence will not reach you. You will only see it with your eyes and witness the punishment of the wicked, because you have made the Lord my refuge, the Most High of your dwelling place. No harm will come to you, no plague will come near your tent. For he will give his angels orders concerning you, to protect you in all your ways. They will support you with their hands, so that you will not strike your foot against a stone. You will tread on the lion and the cobra, and you will trample the young lion and the serpent. Because he is lovingly devoted to me, I will deliver him. I will exalt him, because he knows my name. When he calls out to me, I will answer him. I will be with him in trouble. I will rescue him and give him honor. I will satisfy him with a long life and show him my salvation. May God richly bless the reading of his word. All right, a long reading today, but good. And of course, that's the end of Moses. He did his job and did it well. He made one mistake and he paid for it, but God blessed him with being able to see the land they were about to get into. So tomorrow we will start on a brand new book. All right, can't wait for another new journey. Before tomorrow, let me leave you with this quote of the day. It comes from C.S. Lewis. He says, "You can't go back and change the beginning, but you can start where you are and change the ending." That's such a good saying. I love it. Now may God bless every step of every run and or walk. Go out there and shine your light.